The first rays of dawn filtered through the pine trees, casting long, dancing shadows across the dew-kissed fields of rural Oregon. It was a scene of profound tranquility, a stark contrast to the chaos that was about to unfold. The air, crisp and cool, carried the scent of damp earth and distant wood smoke. In the small, close-knit community of Pine Grove, nestled in the Willamette Valley, life moved at a predictable, gentle pace. Neighbors knew each other, children played freely, and the biggest news often revolved around the upcoming farmers' market or a high school football game. This sleepy town embraced a quiet existence, far removed from the hurried anxieties of urban life. But on this particular morning, the peace of Pine Grove was shattered by a call that would ripple through the valley, leaving behind a wake of fear and disbelief. A frantic voice, trembling and strained, crackled over the emergency dispatcher's radio. The words were disjointed, urgent, and chilling. "My daughter, she's gone. I can't find her." The call came from the Henderson residence, a modest farmhouse on the outskirts of town, surrounded by miles of rolling farmland and dense woodland. Mary Henderson, a woman known for her meticulous routines and deep devotion to her family, was in a state of absolute panic. Her youngest child, 7-year-old Lily, had vanished, seemingly into thin air, from her own bedroom. Deputies from the Polk County Sheriff's Office were dispatched immediately. As their patrol cars sped down the winding country roads, the initial reports painted a disturbing picture. Lily was last seen by her mother tucking her into bed the previous night. There were no signs of forced entry, no indication of a struggle within the home. It was as if the little girl had simply dematerialized. The Henderson farmhouse was a picture of idyllic country living. White picket fence, a sprawling garden, and a weathered red barn that housed a couple of gentle horses. It was the sort of place where parents felt their children were safe, cocooned from the dangers of the outside world. When the Polk County deputies arrived, they were met by Mary Henderson, her face pale and etched with terror. Her husband, John, stood beside her, his usual calm demeanor replaced by a stunned, hollow look. The house, usually filled with the warmth of family life, now felt eerily silent, the absence of little Lily palpable in every empty room. Investigators methodically began their search, their initial steps tentative, almost disbelieving that something so dire could happen here. They moved through Lily's bedroom, a room adorned with unicorn stickers and stuffed animals, desperately seeking any clue, any anomaly that might explain her disappearance. Every toy, every book, every item of clothing was examined for a sign. The morning sun, which had promised a beautiful day, now seemed to mock the unfolding tragedy. The serene landscape of Pine Grove, once a symbol of peace, was quickly becoming a landscape of dread. The question on everyone's lips, from the responding officers to the quickly gathering, worried neighbors, was simple yet terrifying. Where was Lily Henderson? The initial sweep of the property yielded nothing. The surrounding fields were searched, the nearby creek banks were scoured, and the dense woods that bordered their land were cautiously explored. Each rustle of leaves, each snap of a twig, sent a surge of adrenaline through the search parties, only to be met with disappointment. The media, alerted by the growing number of law enforcement vehicles in the area, began to converge. Local news crews, their cameras already rolling, captured the anxious faces of the Henderson family and the determined efforts of the sheriff's department. The story of the missing child in Pine Grove was about to break, and the idyllic image of the town was already beginning to fracture. The search intensified as the hours ticked by. Volunteers, their hearts heavy with concern, joined the official efforts. The community, usually so peaceful, was now gripped by a palpable fear. The unknown nature of Lily's disappearance was the most unsettling aspect. Was she lost? Had she wandered off? Or was something far more sinister at play? As the afternoon wore on, the initial hope of a simple missing child case began to fray. Law enforcement couldn't shake the unsettling quiet of the scene, the lack of any discernible motive or evidence. The Henderson home, which should have been a sanctuary, had become the epicenter of a deepening mystery. The Polk County Sheriff's Office, now coordinating a vast search operation, faced the dawning realization that this might not be a straightforward case. The initial hours, crucial in any missing person investigation, were slipping away. The comfortable facade of Pine Grove was cracking, revealing a darker, more unsettling reality lurking beneath the surface. The search for Lily Henderson had only just begun, and the path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty. And real quick, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more videos. Now let's keep going. The hours following the initial report turned into a full day, and the search for Lily Henderson expanded and intensified. The Polk County Sheriff's Office, along with numerous law enforcement agencies and a growing contingent of concerned citizens, had mounted a massive ground operation. Helicopters scanned the terrain from above, their whirring blades a constant, droning testament to the urgency of the situation. Investigators meticulously documented everything at the Henderson residence. Every item in Lily's bedroom was photographed and catalogued. This included her favorite books, a collection of drawings scattered across her desk, and the neatly made bed where she was last seen. The lack of any disturbance became increasingly perplexing. Detective Miles Corbin, a seasoned investigator with the Polk County Sheriff's Office, took the lead. His expression was grim as he surveyed the scene. He had dealt with missing persons cases before, but the sheer lack of any immediate leads in this instance was troubling. "It's as if she just disappeared," Corbin remarked quietly to his partner, Detective Lena Hansen, as they examined the window in Lily's room. No signs of forced entry on any doors or windows. Nothing out of place, except for the obvious. Detective Hansen nodded, her eyes scanning the meticulously organized room. Her parents swear she was asleep when her mother checked on her. No nightmares, no recent behavioral changes they could recall that might suggest she'd try to leave on her own. It doesn't add up. The initial interviews with Mary and John Henderson provided little concrete information. They recounted their evening routine, their last moments with Lily, and the horrifying discovery of her empty bed. Their grief was raw and palpable, a deep well of pain that resonated throughout the commandeered community center, where a makeshift command post had been established. Neighbors, their faces etched with worry, offered what little they could. Most had not seen or heard anything unusual during the night. The Hendersons' property was somewhat isolated, bordered by acres of dense forest and agricultural land, making it unlikely that a casual passerby would have noticed anything. "We always felt safe here," said Martha Jenkins, a neighbor who lived down the road, her voice trembling. "This is the kind of place where you leave your doors unlocked." The idea that something like this could happen, it chills you to the bone. The media coverage, initially focusing on the local aspect, began to gain national traction as hours turned into days without any sign of Lily. National news crews arrived, broadcasting live from Pine Grove, their reports painting a picture of a desperate community and a bewildered law enforcement team. The narrative was one of helplessness, of a child swallowed by the vastness of the Oregon wilderness. Investigators pursued every possibility, no matter how remote. They analyzed Lily's school records, spoke with her friends and teachers, and looked into any recent visitors or unfamiliar vehicles seen in the area. Every piece of information, no matter how small, was considered a potential puzzle piece. The local forest and surrounding farmlands were subjected to increasingly rigorous searches. K-9 units, working tirelessly, followed scent trails that often led to dead ends or dissipated without explanation. The sheer scale of the search area was a significant challenge. The wilderness was unforgiving, a vast expanse that could easily conceal a small child. As the initial 48-hour mark approached, the grim reality began to set in. The window for finding a missing child alive was rapidly closing. The mood within the command post shifted from urgent, hopeful action to a more somber, methodical investigation. The focus began to broaden, considering less likely scenarios. This shift in focus was due in part to the complete absence of physical evidence. There were no footprints leading away from the house, no discarded items, no signs of a struggle whatsoever. The investigation found itself in a peculiar vacuum of information, where the most crucial element, any clue to Lily's whereabouts or what happened to her, was conspicuously missing. Detective Corbin found himself poring over aerial maps, looking for any unusual features or access points to the Henderson property that might have been overlooked. He revisited the initial crime scene photos, scrutinizing them for details he might have missed in the initial rush. The silence of Lily's room, the orderliness of it all, gnawed at him. "It's too clean, Lena," Corbin stated, tracing a line on the map with his finger. "Too clean. It doesn't feel like a child simply wandered off, or a stranger's abduction. There's something missing here, a piece we can't see." What they couldn't see, what remained elusive, was the key to Lily Henderson's vanished presence. The community searched, the investigators probed, but the answer remained hidden, leaving a growing void of dread and unanswered questions in Pine Grove. As the search for Lily continued into its second day, the initial fervent hope began to be tinged with a creeping, ominous uncertainty. The relentless search for Lily Henderson continued, the initial 72-hour mark having passed with no sign of the missing 7-year-old. The once bustling command post, filled with the determined energy of immediate action, now bore the weight of prolonged desperation. Volunteers, their faces etched with exhaustion and worry, continued to comb the vast expanses of woods and fields surrounding Pine Grove, their efforts tinged with a growing sense of futility. Polk County Sheriff's deputies maintained a constant presence at the Henderson residence, treating it as a potential crime seen even in the absence of concrete forensic evidence. Every inch of the property, from the barn to the deepest thickets of the surrounding forest, had been meticulously searched multiple times. The lack of any tangible clue was beginning to point towards a scenario far more complex than a simple case of a child getting lost. Detective Miles Corbin and Detective Lena Hanson found themselves revisiting the same information, sifting through witness statements and timelines, searching for any overlooked detail, any flicker of inconsistency. The peaceful facade of Pine Grove was now overshadowed by an unsettling anxiety, a fear that something truly malevolent had penetrated their quiet community. "We've canvassed the immediate neighbors again, spoken to every delivery driver, postal worker, anyone who might have been in the area," Detective Hanson reported, her voice weary. "Nothing. No strange vehicles, no unusual noises reported. It's like a ghost took her." Detective Corbin leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "A ghost wouldn't leave her room so tidy, Lena." "This stillness, this absolute lack of struggle, it's what's bothering me most. It suggests planning or something else entirely," he trailed off, the unspoken possibilities hanging heavy in the air. The forensic teams had completed their initial sweep of the Henderson home, a thorough examination yielding frustratingly little. No foreign fingerprints, no stray hairs, no fibers that didn't belong. Lily's bedroom, so innocent and meticulously clean, felt more like a stage set than a place where a child had slept the night before. John and Mary Henderson, though devastated, cooperated fully with the investigation. They provided detailed accounts of their lives, past relationships, and any potential conflicts, but nothing emerged that would point to a suspect or a motive. The couple, once a picture of quiet domestic happiness, now seemed lost in a fog of grief and confusion. Media attention, initially confined to local and state reports, was now global. The story of the vanishing girl in Oregon had captured the world's attention, and the pressure on the Polk County Sheriff's Office was immense. Every press conference was met with a barrage of questions, and the lack of answers only fueled speculation and public anxiety. "We understand the public's concern and the need for answers," Sheriff Brody announced at a tense press briefing. Our team is working around the clock, exhausting every investigative avenue. We are asking anyone with any information, no matter how insignificant it may seem, to come forward. No detail is too small. The investigation was now broadening to include Lily's digital footprint, however limited it might be for a 7-year-old. School computers, family tablets, and any online activity were being scrutinized for any anomalies, any previously unknown connections or interactions. It was a shot in the dark, but in the absence of any other leads, no possibility was being discounted. The sheer geographic isolation of the Henderson property added another layer of difficulty. The acres of dense forest and fields made it easy for someone to approach unseen or for a child to become disoriented. However, the lack of any trace of Lily or any sign of forced entry continued to perplex the investigators. Corbin requested a deeper dive into the Hendersons' personal lives, a more intrusive look at their history. Had they had any recent disputes, any estranged family members, anyone with a grievance? They were looking for any shadow, any hidden corner of their past that might cast a pall over their present. Theories began to circulate, whispered in hushed tones among the community and debated endlessly on online forums. Was it a random abduction, a targeted attack, or something more complex involving people close to the family? The void of information allowed speculation to run rampant, filling the vacuum with fear and conjecture. As a chilling, persistent rain began to fall on Pine Grove, mirroring the summer mood, families huddled indoors, their eyes glued to the news. The simple act of a child disappearing from her bed in a place that was supposed to be safe had shattered the illusion of innocence for this quiet corner of Oregon. The investigators, caught in the stillness of the inexplicable, were beginning to feel the unnerving weight of a mystery that defied conventional explanation. The absence of evidence was, in itself, the most damning clue, leading Corbin to believe they were dealing with something far more sophisticated and disturbing than anyone had initially imagined. The unanswered question loomed large. What truly happened inside that quiet bedroom? The persistent autumn rain had turned the rolling hills of Pine Grove into muddy expanses, mirroring the bleak outlook for the search of Lily Henderson. Days bled into a week, and the initial public fervor began to give way to a more gnawing, anxious dread. The pressure on the Polk County Sheriff's Office, already immense, intensified as the case remained a dead end. Detective Miles Corbin and Detective Lena Hanson were running on fumes, their days filled with endless interviews, meticulous re-examinations of evidence, and the constant, gnawing frustration of having no solid leads. The Henderson residence, once a symbol of domestic peace, had become a stark monument to an inexplicable loss. We've re-interviewed the parents, every neighbor, every mail carrier again, Detective Hanson reported, her voice hoarse. They're sticking to their stories, and frankly, their grief seems genuine. But we need something, Miles, anything. Detective Corbin stared at a large map of the Henderson property and surrounding areas, dotted with pins marking search grids and points of interest. It's the lack of signs of entry or struggle that keeps me up at night, Lena. It suggests a level of control, of precision, that's unnerving for a typical abduction. The media, initially focused on the missing child aspect, began to pivot. Speculation about the family's involvement, though officially dismissed by Sheriff Brody as unfounded, started to seep into public discourse. The narrative was shifting from a simple missing person case to something far more sinister, tinged with suspicion. We've got national news outlets asking about potential foul play within the family, Sheriff Brody informed Corbin during a tense meeting. We need to publicly reinforce that we are exploring all avenues, but without evidence, any insinuation is damaging. We're getting calls about the parents, about their backgrounds, about anything that could be twisted. The forensic team's report, which had been eagerly awaited, offered little solace. While they had found no evidence of forced entry, They had also not found any signs that Lily had left the house on her own volition. Her bedroom was pristine, and there were no discernible prints or fibers that pointed to an outside party. It was a baffling void. The report confirms what we've seen, Detective Hansen sighed, flipping through the pages. No foreign DNA, no prints that don't belong to the family. Lily's room was clean, almost too clean. It's like she just evaporated. The investigation began to cast a wider net, re-examining every detail of the Hendersons' lives. Were there any past disputes, any disgruntled former employees on their farm, any unusual encounters in the weeks leading up to Lily's disappearance? They were seeking any unusual ripple in their seemingly calm existence. Corbin requested access to the Hendersons, financial records and phone logs, looking for any unusual communications or transactions that might shed light on hidden stressors or unexpected visitors. The hope was that even a digital trail, however faint, might exist. We need to consider every scenario, however improbable, Corbin told his team. Could she have been sleepwalking? Had there been any recent incidents that might have caused her distress? We need to try and find some explanation, even if it's a painful one for her parents. Neighbors, once eager to share any tidbit of information, were now more reticent, some of them casting furtive glances towards the Henderson house. The insular nature of Pine Grove made such an event even more shocking, and the lack of answers bred an atmosphere of distrust and suspicion. The extensive search of the surrounding wilderness, involving hundreds of volunteers and trained professionals, had yielded nothing. No torn clothing, no discarded personal items, not even a scuff mark that could be attributed to Lily. The sheer vastness of the Oregon landscape seemed to have swallowed her whole, or something else had taken her somewhere beyond the immediate reach of the search parties. Corbin revisited the timeline of the Hendersons' evening, scrutinizing every minute. Mary Henderson's account of checking on Lily, tucking her in, and then discovering her missing the following morning was consistent. But the lack of any sound, any disturbance, haunted the narrative. If she was taken from her bed while they were in the house, Corbin mused aloud in the command post, it implies an incredible level of stealth. Or that she left willingly, which doesn't fit with her age and the lack of preparation. The mystery deepened with each passing day. The absence of evidence was becoming the most significant, frustrating piece of the puzzle. It suggested that whoever was involved, if anyone, was meticulous, or that Lily's disappearance was so baffling it defied any logical explanation the investigators could currently grasp. The rain continued to fall, a somber soundtrack to the ongoing, agonizing search for answers in Pine Grove. The possibility that Lily had been taken by someone who knew how to move in the shadows, leaving no trace, began to feel chillingly real. The persistent Oregon rain finally abated, giving way to a cold, gray sky, but the gloom cast over Pine Grove remained unbroken. Days had turned into over a week since Lily Henderson vanished, and the initial frenzy of a large-scale, immediate search had transitioned into a more methodical, painstaking investigative process. The Polk County Sheriff's Office found itself facing the harsh reality of a cold case, the trail of clues growing colder with every passing hour. Detectives Corbin and Hansen, their faces etched with weariness, continued to re-examine every deposition, every photograph, every piece of collected data. The Henderson home, once a place of family warmth, now felt like the silent epicenter of a profound mystery. The pristine state of Lily's bedroom continued to be the most perplexing element. "We've gone over the bedroom search reports a dozen times," Detective Hansen stated, her voice flat with exhaustion. "No signs of forced entry, no disturbance, no indication she left on her own. It's as if the room itself holds a secret it refuses to give up." Detective Corbin stared at a magnified image of Lily's bedside table, a collection of stuffed animals, and a well-worn storybook. The parents maintained she was sound asleep when her mother checked on her. They were in the house. If someone entered, it's an almost impossible feat to do so without a trace, and without waking anyone. The media, while still present, had broadened its scope. The narrative had shifted from a race against time to find a child to a deep dive into the Hendersons' lives, exploring every facet for potential motives or suspects. Whispers and rumors, fueled by the lack of concrete answers, began to circulate more widely. Sheriff Brody, increasingly strained by the media spotlight and the public's demand for resolution, called an urgent meeting. "We're getting pressure from all sides," he admitted, his brow furrowed. "The national media is pushing for answers, the community is growing restless, and frankly, our own officers are frustrated. We need a breakthrough, or at least a new angle." The forensic team's final, comprehensive report offered no new revelations. It confirmed the absence of forced entry and the lack of any foreign DNA or material in Lily's room that couldn't be accounted for. The conclusion was as unsettling as the initial discovery. There was simply no physical evidence to explain Lily's disappearance. "The report is clear," Corbin told his team, tapping the document on the table. "No evidence of a struggle, no evidence of a perpetrator. But the lack of evidence is the evidence, in a way. It suggests someone who knew what they were doing, someone who left no trace." The investigation was now officially expanding beyond the immediate scope of the Henderson property. Detectives began to delve deeper into the Hendersons' histories, their relationships, and any past conflicts or unusual associations. They were looking for any anomaly, any discord in the seemingly placid surface of their lives. "We're talking to former employees, distant relatives, anyone who might have had a reason, however obscure, to hold a grudge against the Hendersons," Hansen explained. "It's painstaking work, and so far, it's yielded nothing concrete, but we have to consider every possibility." The local community, though still deeply concerned, was also beginning to grapple with the chilling implications. The idea that such an event could occur in their quiet town had shattered a fundamental sense of security. Each passing day deepened the sense of unease, and the unsolved disappearance of Lily Henderson began to cast a long shadow over Pine Grove. Corbin revisited the timeline of the evening Lily disappeared, focusing on the subtle details. Had there been any unusual sounds, any power fluctuations, any disruptions in the usual rhythm of the house that the Hendersons might have dismissed as insignificant at the time? "We need to consider if Lily herself might have been the target rather than the family," Corbin mused, staring out the window at the overcast sky. Was there anyone who had developed an unusual interest in her? Someone who might have known her habits, her room? The immensity of the search area, comprising acres of dense forest and rugged terrain, continued to be a significant obstacle. Despite multiple thorough searches, not a single trace of Lily had been found. The vastness of the landscape offered a chillingly effective hiding place, or a silent testament to a meticulously planned departure. As the investigation stalled, a sense of grim resignation began to settle over the authorities. The hope of finding Lily alive was diminishing with each passing day, replaced by the daunting reality of a complex, deeply unsettling mystery. The pristine, untouched room where Lily was last seen remained the most confounding piece of the puzzle, a silent enigma that whispered of something far more disturbing than anyone dared to fully articulate. The question that gnawed at Corbin. Was Lily taken, or had something else, something inexplicable, occurred? The investigation into Lily Henderson's disappearance stagnated, the initial surge of police activity gradually giving way to the slow, methodical grind of a difficult case. Over a week into the investigation, the Polk County Sheriff's Office found itself adrift in a sea of unanswered questions and a conspicuous lack of any physical evidence. The pristine condition of Lily's bedroom continued to be a haunting anomaly that defied conventional explanations. Detective Miles Corbin and Detective Lena Hansen found themselves revisiting the same interviews, poring over the same reports, searching for a needle in a haystack that seemed to be entirely empty. The Henderson home, a focal point of intense scrutiny, offered no new insights. Its silence was deafening, amplifying the mystery. "We've exhausted all immediate leads from the property and the immediate vicinity," Detective Hanson reported, her voice laced with fatigue during a briefing. The extensive ground searches yielded nothing. No discarded items, no footprints, absolutely no trace of Lily. Detective Corbin, his gaze fixed on a timeline of the Hendersons' activities on the night of the disappearance, leaned forward. The parents' account remains consistent. Mary Henderson checked on Lily, found her asleep, and then discovered her missing hours later. No sounds, no disturbances heard by either parent. It's the sheer lack of normalcy that is so disturbing. The forensic analysis of Lily's room, which had been conducted with the utmost care, confirmed the absence of any foreign substances or signs of struggle. Not a single fingerprint that didn't belong to a family member was found. The room was, by all accounts, a perfect, undisturbed sanctuary. "It's almost as if she never left the room," Corbin mused, tapping his pen on the table. Or that whoever was involved had an almost supernatural ability to move unseen and unheard. This isn't typical for a child abduction. This suggests something else. The media's focus began to shift from the urgency of a missing child to the perplexing lack of progress. National news outlets started to explore deeper, more speculative angles, questioning the family's accounts and the effectiveness of the investigation. The pressure on Sheriff Brody and his team was a palpable burden. Sheriff Brody convened another meeting, his frustration evident. "We're being asked about every possible scenario, from alien abduction to a hidden cult," he stated, pinching the bridge of his nose. "We cannot operate on speculation. We need evidence, and right now, we have an overwhelming absence of it." The investigators began to widen their net, looking for any unusual patterns in the Hendersons' lives or Lily's routine that might have been overlooked. They delved into their social media profiles, their financial records, and their communication logs. It was a long shot, but in the absence of physical evidence, any digital footprint could be crucial. "We're looking for any unusual transactions, any anonymous communications, any online activity that could be linked to Lily or the family prior to her disappearance," Detective Hanson explained to her team. "It's tedious, but we have to assume that if we can't find physical traces, perhaps there's a digital ghost." The local community, while still offering their support, was also a source of growing unease. The lack of answers fueled whispers and anxieties. Neighbors who had once been friendly now seemed guarded, their conversations hushed when passing the Henderson property. The unsettling nature of the disappearance had injected a pervasive fear into the fabric of their community. Corbin returned to the Henderson residence, not for another search, but for quiet contemplation. He stood in Lily's empty room, the afternoon sun casting a weak, pale light. He noticed a small, intricate drawing pinned to the corkboard above her desk. It depicted a girl holding hands with a shadowy, indistinct figure under a star-filled sky. The drawing, initially passed off as a child's fanciful artwork, now seemed to hold a chilling, prophetic weight. "What was Lily drawing, Mary?" Corbin had asked her mother, pointing to the artwork. Mary Henderson, her eyes clouded with grief, had dismissed it. "Just her imagination, detective. She always loved drawing fantastical creatures and imaginary friends." However, observing it again, Corbin felt a prickle of unease. The shadowy figure was unnervingly detailed for a child's drawing of an imaginary friend. It was darker, more defined than a simple crayon scribble. Could this be a subtle clue, a whisper from Lily herself about what was happening or who she was with? The investigation, at a standstill, now had a new, albeit deeply unsettling, focal point. A child's drawing that hinted at a darkness beyond the visible. The intricate drawing found, pinned above Lily Henderson's desk, a depiction of the child holding hands with a shadowy figure, became a persistent point of contemplation for Detective Miles Corbin. The innocuous nature of a child's artwork was now overshadowed by the chilling details, sparking a new line of inquiry for the investigators in the seemingly dormant case. The scene at the Henderson residence, once filled with frantic search efforts, now held the quiet tension of a developing theory. Detective Corbin presented the drawing to Detective Lena Hanson and Sheriff Brody, his expression grim. "I know we've dismissed this as a child's imagination, but look closer," he urged, pointing out the subtle shading and the vaguely humanoid form of the shadowy figure. "This isn't just a scribble. There's a deliberate quality here. It looks almost watchful." Sheriff Brody, though skeptical, acknowledged the unsettling nature of the artwork in the context of Lily's disappearance. "We've interviewed the family extensively, and they've consistently stated no one unusual entered their home or interacted with Lily in a concerning way," he reiterated. "But given the complete lack of any other leads, we'll explore every possibility, no matter how unfathomable." The Hendersons, when questioned again about the drawing, reiterated that Lily often drew imagined characters. Mary Henderson recalled Lily saying she had a special friend she drew sometimes, but she didn't elaborate further, attributing it to a vivid imagination. The family genuinely seemed to be at a loss, their grief overshadowing any potential insights. "We need to understand who or what this special friend might have been," Detective Hanson stated, looking at the drawing with renewed focus. "Was it someone she encountered online? Someone who visited the property who she felt a connection with? Or something else?" As the investigators delved deeper, they started to re-examine the Hendersons' computer and tablet records, looking for any online interactions Lily might have had, however limited. While Lily was young, the possibility of her having accessed child-friendly online games or educational platforms where she might have interacted with others was explored. The digital world, often unseen, could hold the key. They discovered Lily had a tablet primarily used for educational games. A review of its activity logs showed a history of age-appropriate browsing. However, buried deep within the usage logs, a series of indirect searches initiated by Lily on her own began to surface. These weren't typical searches for games or cartoons, but rather for information about local wildlife, particularly nocturnal animals. She was looking up owls, bats, things that are active at night, Hanson observed, reviewing the logs. Why would a 7-year-old be researching nocturnal creatures with such specific interest? This discovery, while seemingly unrelated, began to form a peculiar pattern with Lily's drawing. The shadowy figure in her artwork, coupled with her fascination with nighttime creatures, started to suggest a narrative that was becoming increasingly unsettling and less aligned with a typical abduction scenario. Detective Corbin, recalling the rural setting of their home, considered the local ecology. Pine Grove was surrounded by vast forests, home to a variety of wildlife. Could Lily have developed an interest in the natural world around her home, an interest that perhaps led her outdoors at night? But again, the lack of any sign of her leaving the house remained the critical disconnect. If she was interested in nocturnal animals, she might have been drawn to the forest at night, Corbin theorized. But her parents insist she was in her room, asleep, and there's no indication she left the house. It's this perfect vacuum of evidence that's so damn frustrating. The possibility that Lily had a secret fascination with the woods, a hidden world beyond her bedroom, began to take shape. The shadowy figure in her drawing, perhaps a misinterpretation of a creature of the night or a friend she met in her imagination, started to feel like a tangible, albeit mysterious, lead. However, the investigators were still grappling with the fundamental problem. How could Lily have left her secured room and then her secured house without any trace of entry or exit? The drawing, while providing a potential character, didn't explain the how or why of her disappearance from the safety of her home. As the investigation continued to circle back to the drawing and Lily's unusual search history, a sense of unease settled over the team. The seemingly innocent elements of a child's art and curiosity were now pointing towards a path that was both dark and deeply mysterious, hinting that Lily's disappearance might be less about an external threat and more about something she herself was drawn towards, something hidden within the shadows of the night. The investigation into Lily Henderson's disappearance took an unexpected turn, fueled by a child's cryptic drawing and a series of peculiar online searches. The shadowy figure Lily had depicted, once dismissed as a figment of her imagination, now seemed to represent a tangible, albeit unknown, entity. The Polk County Sheriff's Office, facing a wall of no leads, began to explore the possibility that Lily's fascination with the nocturnal world might have played a role in her vanishing act. Detective Miles Corbin, poring over Lily's tablet usage logs, discovered a pattern of interest in local wildlife, specifically nocturnal animals like owls and bats. This newfound knowledge, combined with the drawing, painted a picture of a child who was perhaps more aware of, or drawn to, the world after dark than her parents realized. She spent an unusual amount of time researching owls and their habitats, Detective Hanson noted, her brow furrowed, and she was looking up information about the woods behind their property. It's an odd interest for a 7-year-old, especially one who apparently slept soundly through the night. The Hendersons, when questioned about this specific interest, confirmed Lily's love for nature, but were unaware of any deep dive into nocturnal creatures. They maintained that Lily's bedtime routine was unchanged, and she showed no signs of being drawn to the outdoors late at night. The disconnect between Lily's digital activity and her parents' perception of her was a growing concern. It's like she had a secret life, a whole world that we didn't know about, Mary Henderson confided to Detective Hanson, her voice heavy with a mother's regret. If she was interested in the woods at night, I wish I'd known. I would have made sure she was safe. Detective Corbin considered the possibility that Lily might have experienced a unique fascination, one that perhaps led her to explore the edges of her known world. The isolated nature of their farm, bordering dense forest, provided ample opportunity for such an exploration, but the mechanism of her leaving the house remained the primary hurdle. The lack of forced entry is still the biggest mystery, Corbin stated during a team meeting. If she was drawn outside, how did she leave her room? How did she leave the house without anyone hearing or seeing anything? It's as if the house itself allowed her to pass through. The investigative team expanded their search parameters, focusing on the dense woodland that bordered the Henderson property. They brought in specialized tracking dogs and consulted with local wildlife experts, hoping to find any sign of unusual activity or a path that Lily might have taken. The dense foliage, however, offered little in the way of definitive clues. As the days continued to pass, the media's focus remained on the perplexing details. The narrative of a missing child began to morph into a discussion about the unknown, about the possibility of something beyond human intervention. The drawing, circulating widely in media reports, fueled further speculation and theories online, some suggesting supernatural elements. Corbin, though a man of logic and evidence, couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that there was more to Lily's disappearance than a simple human act. The meticulousness of her absence, the lack of any disturbance, and her peculiar digital footprint combined to create an aura of enigma. Could she have been lured out by something she perceived as harmless or even friendly? Corbin pondered aloud to Hanson. That drawing, that shadowy figure, what if she saw it as a guide, a friend, rather than a threat? The investigators revisited the concept of sleepwalking, but Mary Henderson insisted Lily had never been a sleepwalker. The possibility of an unlocked door or a window left ajar was thoroughly investigated, but all evidence indicated the house was secured. The case was at a standstill, caught between the incomprehensible absence of evidence and the unsettling hints uncovered by Lily's drawing and her online activity. The shadowy figure remained a phantom, a silent participant in a mystery that seemed to stretch beyond the realm of ordinary crime. The question that haunted Detective Corbin was no longer just if Lily was taken, but what exactly had led her away from the safety of her home in the first place, and why had it left absolutely no trace behind? The investigation into Lily Henderson's disappearance continued to be defined by its notable lack of tangible clues, while simultaneously being preoccupied with the cryptic hints provided by a child's drawing and her unusual online searches. Detective Miles Corbin remained fixated on the shadowy figure Lily had depicted and her newfound interest in the nocturnal habits of local wildlife. This peculiar combination suggested a narrative that was far removed from typical abduction scenarios. Detective Corbin and his team decided to re-examine the Henderson property with a new perspective, specifically looking for any anomalies that might facilitate an undetected exit for a child. They focused on areas that might have been overlooked during the initial, more frantic searches. This included a detailed inspection of the exterior of the house, particularly around Lily's bedroom window. "We're looking for anything that could have been used as a makeshift ladder, any disturbance in the soil beneath the window, any scuff marks on the siding that might suggest someone or something climbed up," Corbin explained to his team. Even the smallest detail could be significant now. The search of the wooded area behind the Hendersons' property was also intensified, with a particular focus on any game trails or unusual natural formations that might have been of interest to a child. Local wildlife experts were consulted again, providing detailed accounts of common animal behaviors and pathways within the forest. As they meticulously examined the area beneath Lily's bedroom window, one of the officers noticed a series of faint impressions in the soft earth, almost completely obscured by recent rainfall. These were not clearly defined footprints, but rather subtle indentations that, when measured and analyzed against Lily's shoe size, presented a disturbing possibility. "It's faint, and the rain has washed away much of it, but there's something here," the officer reported to Corbin. "It looks like small prints, consistent with Lily's size, and they lead away from the house towards the edge of the woods." This discovery, though tentative, offered the first potential physical evidence, suggesting Lily had indeed left the house on her own, albeit under unusual circumstances. The implication was that she had somehow exited her room and then the house, unseen and unheard. "If these are Lily's prints, then she left willingly," Corbin stated, his voice low and thoughtful. "But the question remains, how did she get out of her room and the house? And why in the middle of the night?" The focus then shifted back to the Hendersons, daily routines, and the security of their home. They re-interviewed Mary and John Henderson about any recent changes or unusual occurrences that might explain how Lily could have gained unsupervised access to the outdoors. Mary Henderson recalled a recent issue with a gate leading from their backyard into the wooded area. "We had a problem with a latch on that gate," she confessed, her voice trembling. "It wasn't fully securing. We meant to fix it properly, but with everything going on, I suppose we let it slide. It's been faulty for a few weeks." This detail provided a potential escape route from the property itself. If Lily could exit the house undetected, she could then make her way to the inadequately secured gate and enter the surrounding forest. However, the mystery of her exit from her bedroom remained. Detective Hanson revisited the interior of Lily's room, scrutinizing every fixture, every piece of furniture. She noticed that Lily's bed was positioned near the closet. The closet door, when opened, revealed a small crawl space that led to the attic access panel. "Miles, look at this," Hanson called out, pointing towards the attic insulation. "There are signs of disturbance here, faint scuff marks. And the access panel, it's slightly ajar." This was the breakthrough. Lily, driven by an unknown compulsion, had likely used her bed to reach the closet ceiling, accessed the attic, and then potentially found a way to exit the house through an attic vent or a less secured part of the roof. The shadowy figure in her drawing, coupled with her nocturnal wildlife research, began to suggest a child entranced by the idea of exploring the night world, perhaps believing she could encounter the creatures she researched. The investigation, while still fraught with the unknown about Lily's ultimate fate, now had a plausible sequence of events for her departure. The question had shifted from if she left to why she left, and where exactly in the vast wilderness she had gone. The woods, once a silent backdrop, now became the primary stage of a desperate, unfolding search. The discovery of faint impressions beneath Lily Henderson's window and the signs of disturbance in the attic crawl space provided the first tangible, albeit unsettling, breakthrough in the investigation. Detective Corbin and his team now had a plausible modus operandi for Lily's departure from the Henderson residence: an unintended exit through the attic, followed by her escape through a faulty backyard gate into the surrounding wilderness. The focus of the investigation dramatically shifted to the vast, dense forest bordering the property. "We have a potential pathway," Detective Corbin announced, his voice tight with urgency during a planning session. She got out of her room, likely into the attic, and then the house. The gate was unlatched. Now the question is, where did she go from there, and what was drawing her into the woods at night? The evidence of Lily's interest in nocturnal animals, combined with the shadowy figure in her drawing, began to form a cohesive, albeit disturbing, narrative. Investigators theorized that Lily, perhaps in a state of nocturnal exploration or under the influence of an imaginative drive, had ventured into the wilderness, possibly believing she was going to encounter the creatures she had been researching. Sheriff Brody authorized an immediate, comprehensive search of the forest, deploying every available officer and coordinating with search and rescue teams from surrounding counties. The area was vast, a daunting expanse of towering trees, tangled undergrowth, and uneven terrain. The sheer scale of the search presented an immense challenge. Search parties, equipped with thermal imaging equipment and specially trained dogs, began to meticulously comb the wooded area. The goal was to find any sign of Lily, a footprint, a discarded piece of clothing, anything that could indicate her direction of travel. The lingering rain from previous days, however, had made tracking exceptionally difficult, as it had obscured or washed away any delicate signs. "We're looking for any deviation from the natural environment," explained a search and rescue coordinator. "A broken branch, displaced leaves, anything that looks out of place. The density of the trees means visibility is extremely limited, even during the day." The investigative team also began to re-examine Lily's digital footprint with even greater scrutiny. They were looking for any communication, however indirect, that might have suggested she was planning to meet someone or go somewhere specific. The shadowy figure in her drawing remained a point of intense speculation. Was it a figment of her imagination, or a representation of someone or something Lily encountered or believed she would encounter? "We're digging into every online interaction Lily might have had," Detective Hansen reported. "Even in age-appropriate games, there can be chat functions. We need to know if she was communicating with anyone or if this special friend was truly just a figment of her imagination." The media, alerted to the new developments, began to focus on the potential for Lily to be lost in the wilderness. The narrative shifted to a race against time, with the unforgiving terrain and fluctuating weather posing significant threats. The public, keenly following the case, offered prayers and donations, their hearts heavy with the uncertainty of Lily's fate. Corbin, however, was still troubled by the precise motivation behind Lily's nocturnal excursion. While the evidence pointed towards her leaving willingly, the why remained elusive. The shadowy figure in her drawing, the research into nocturnal creatures, it all felt like pieces of a puzzle that didn't quite fit a simple scenario of a lost child. "It's one thing to be drawn to the woods," Corbin mused, looking out at the impenetrable wall of trees. "It's another to leave your secure home in the dead of night, with no preparation, no explanation. There has to be more to this. Something that compelled her, or perhaps called her." The search continued, an exhausting day and night operation. The vastness of the Oregon wilderness seemed to swallow every effort, every clue. The hope of finding Lily alive was a flickering flame against the growing darkness of the unknown. The forest guarded its secrets, and the investigators pressed on, driven by the desperate need to uncover what lay hidden within its depths, and what had truly drawn Lily Henderson away from home into the silent, waiting woods. The search for Lily Henderson intensified, focusing on the vast, dense forest bordering the Henderson property. The investigators had a plausible theory on how Lily left her home, through the attic and out the faulty backyard gate. But the crucial question of why she ventured into the woods and what or who might have been involved remained unanswered. The cryptic drawing and her research into nocturnal creatures fueled speculation that Lily may have been lured by something or someone. Detective Miles Corbin and Detective Lena Hansen, along with an expanded team of law enforcement and search and rescue personnel, concentrated their efforts on the rugged terrain. Every officer was briefed on the possibility of Lily having been drawn by an interest in wildlife, and they were instructed to look for signs that might indicate she was following a specific trail or scent. Weeks into the intensive search, a breakthrough finally came. During a grid search in a particularly dense section of the woods, a volunteer searcher, an experienced outdoorsman named Mark Davies, stumbled upon a small, brightly colored object partially hidden beneath a fallen log. It was a hair clip, one that Mary Henderson immediately identified as belonging to Lily. The discovery sent a surge of adrenaline through the search teams. This was concrete evidence that Lily had been in this specific area. The location was several miles from the Henderson residence, deep within the forest, raising serious concerns about Lily's well-being. "This confirms she came this way," Detective Corbin stated, examining the clip. "But it also indicates she's traveled a significant distance. The terrain here is rough, and she's just a child. We need to expand our search radius exponentially from this point." The area around the hair clip was meticulously processed. Investigators looked for any further signs of Lily's passage, any disturbed undergrowth, or any other personal items. However, the dense forest floor, coupled with days of unpredictable weather, made finding additional clues incredibly challenging. The discovery of the hair clip also began to shift the narrative once again. While everyone still hoped for Lily's safe return, the distance she had traveled and the rough conditions meant the possibility of her having gotten lost or injured was now a stark reality. The initial theories about her being lured by imagined creatures or a shadowy figure seemed to gain a chilling coherence, suggesting she might have been following someone or something. Sheriff Brody, present at the scene of the discovery, addressed the gathered media. "The recovery of this item is a critical development in our search for Lily Henderson. It confirms she was in this particular area of the forest. Our search efforts are now being concentrated and intensified from this point forward. We urge the public to remain vigilant and report any sightings or information." The media coverage, which had already been intense, now focused on the renewed hope and grim determination of the search. National attention renewed, with reporters highlighting the challenging wilderness and the harrowing efforts to find the missing child. Detective Hansen, while re-examining Lily's drawing, began to notice subtle details she had previously overlooked. The shadowy figure's hands seemed to be extended, as if beckoning. Combined with the research into how owls hunt, using keen senses to locate prey, a disturbing parallel began to form. "Look at the way her friend is drawn," Hansen said to Corbin, pointing to the image. "It's reaching out, and her research into owls, they glide silently, they spot prey from above. What if she perceived this friend as something that could guide her or even transport her?" The investigative team began to consider the possibility that Lily had not simply wandered off, but had been led, or perhaps even taken, by someone or something that she perceived as non-threatening. The remote location of the hair clip, deep within the unforgiving woods, underscored this terrifying possibility. The recovery of the hair clip provided a physical anchor for the search, but it also deepened the mystery. It confirmed Lily had been in this remote location, but it offered no explanation for her continued presence or her ultimate fate. The forest remained a silent, formidable barrier, holding secrets that the search teams were desperately trying to unlock. The faint hope sparked by the hair clip was intertwined with a growing dread that the answer lay somewhere within the impenetrable depths of the Oregon wilderness. The search was far from over. Now it was a race against time, in a landscape that offered little mercy. The discovery of Lily Henderson's hair clip marked a turning point in the search, confirming her presence deep within the vast Oregon wilderness. This physical evidence galvanized the already determined search teams, shifting their focus to the remote area where the clip was found. The hope of finding her alive, though dwindling with each passing day, now had a specific geographic anchor. Detective Miles Corbin and Detective Lena Hansen, alongside an army of search and rescue personnel, meticulously combed the dense forest surrounding the discovery site. The terrain was unforgiving, a labyrinth of fallen trees, thick underbrush, and steep ravines. Every fallen log, every rustle of leaves, held the potential of being a clue. During a subsequent sweep, an officer found a small, handmade cord bracelet snagged on a low-hanging branch. Mary Henderson confirmed it as one Lily had recently made for herself. Like the hair clip, its discovery indicated Lily had traveled further into the treacherous woods. The implications were grim. A child of 7, alone and unsupported in such an environment, faced immense danger. "She's moving, or she was moved, deeper into the forest," Detective Hansen murmured, her gaze sweeping across the dense canopy. The distance between these 2 points, the hair clip and now this bracelet, it's significant. Whatever drew her out here, it kept her drawn. The investigation began to reevaluate the shadowy figure from Lily's drawing. Was it a real person who had befriended or manipulated the child? Or was it a symbolic representation, perhaps of a creature she encountered or a concept she was exploring? The lack of any human trace, any sign of a perpetrator, continued to confound the investigators. "We're still seeing no evidence of a struggle, no signs of another person," Detective Corbin stated, meticulously marking the locations of the discovered items on a map. "It's as if she was walking freely, following something or someone." This consistency is what keeps us coming back to the idea that she wasn't taken by force against her will, or at least, not initially. Theories continued to proliferate among local residents and online communities. Some believed Lily had indeed met a stranger who preyed on her innocent nature. Others, influenced by her drawing and research, speculated about her being drawn into a fantasy world, perhaps even believing she was going to join a mythical creature. The media's narrative began to reflect the growing concern about Lily's survival. The focus shifted to the challenges of the wilderness and the increasing odds against finding her alive. Hope was still present, but it was tempered with the grim reality of the situation. Investigators revisited Lily's digital activity one last time, searching for any deleted files or obscure messages that might have been missed. They discovered that Lily had, in fact, accessed a local nature forum, albeit through her parents' tablet. On this forum, she had posted a single cryptic question: "How do the night watchers guide you home?" This post, almost 2 weeks before her disappearance, was a revelation. It suggested a prior fascination, a question Lily had been pondering, possibly long before she ventured into the woods. The night watchers could be a direct reference to the nocturnal animals she researched, or perhaps to the shadowy figure in her drawing. "This changes things," Corbin said, his voice grave. "She wasn't just randomly fascinated. She was actively seeking information, asking questions about being guided. This indicates a plan, or at least an intention, to follow something." The depth of Lily's curiosity and the complexity of her imagined world were becoming increasingly apparent. The investigators were now faced with the daunting task of understanding a child's unique perspective and how it might have led her into peril. The forest, however, remained silent, offering no easy answers. The discarded bracelet, a fragile link to Lily, only deepened the mystery of her journey into the wild unknown. The discovery of Lily Henderson's hair clip and handmade bracelet, situated miles apart deep within the Oregon wilderness, provided undeniable proof that she had ventured far from her home. The evidence suggested a deliberate, though perhaps misguided, journey into the forest. The cryptic question Lily had posted online, "How do the night watchers guide you home?" added a chilling layer of premeditation to her vanishing. Detective Miles Corbin and Detective Lena Hansen, with this new insight, focused their investigation on understanding Lily's internal world and the potential influences that might have led her into the woods. The night watchers and the shadowy figure from her drawing were no longer abstract concepts, but potential representations of her perceived guides, steering her into the wilderness. The drawings, the searches, the online question, it all points to a child seeking something out there, Corbin stated, poring over Lily's browser history. She wasn't just lost. She was following a narrative, an imagined journey. We need to try and reconstruct that narrative. The search teams continued their arduous work, now with a heightened focus on following any subtle indications of Lily's path. They examined the areas where the hair clip and bracelet were found for any further signs, no matter how minuscule. The dense forest, however, remained a formidable adversary, its natural processes quickly obscuring any human trail. The investigative team revisited the Hendersons, seeking any information that might shed light on Lily's fascination with nature or any unusual stories or beliefs she might have held. Mary Henderson recalled Lily sometimes talking about the forest as if it held secrets, and that she often spoke of the animals as if they understood her. She used to say the trees whispered to her, Mary recounted, her voice soft and melancholic, and that the owls were wise messengers. I thought it was just innocent fantasy, but now I'm not so sure. This confirmation from Lily's mother painted a picture of a child deeply attuned to the natural world, perhaps blurring the lines between imagination and reality. The investigators considered the possibility that Lily, filled with her fantasy, had set out to find these night watchers she believed would guide her. The media, seizing on the new information, began to highlight the narrative of a child led astray by her own imagination. The story evolved from a simple missing person case to a poignant, tragic tale of a child's innocent curiosity leading her into peril. The public's empathy grew, with many expressing sadness for the Hendersons and concern for Lily's fate. However, the critical question persisted. Was Lily truly alone, or had someone or something else been involved? The absence of any evidence of a perpetrator, the lack of forced entry, and the consistent narrative of Lily's self-initiated departure fueled speculation. If she was following an imagined guide, she might not have perceived any danger, Detective Hansen observed. If she encountered someone, she might have believed they were part of her imagined world, a friendly guide rather than a threat. That's the terrifying part of this. The search teams maintained their efforts, focusing on the most remote and challenging parts of the forest. They were looking for any sign that might indicate Lily had either been in distress or had a specific destination in mind. The vastness of the wilderness offered both the potential for her to be lost indefinitely and the possibility, however slim, of her being found. Corbin, staring at the map, felt a growing certainty that Lily's disappearance was deeply rooted in her own perceptions and her unique relationship with the natural world. The online question about being guided home, her drawings, and her mother's descriptions of her fantasy world coalesced into a narrative of a child embarking on an ill-fated quest. The forest, silent and indifferent, continued to hold the answer to what had truly happened to Lily Henderson. The investigation into Lily Henderson's disappearance was now deeply immersed in understanding the intricate world of a 7-year-old's imagination. The evidence, her drawings, her online searches concerning nocturnal animals, her cryptic question about night watchers guiding her, and the discovery of her personal items deep within the forest, all pointed towards a child who had embarked on a self-driven, albeit perilous, journey. The Polk County Sheriff's Office grappled with the heartbreaking reality that Lily may not have been a victim of a conventional abduction, but rather a casualty of her own fantastical beliefs. Detective Miles Corbin and Detective Lena Hansen diligently re-examined the timeline of Lily's last known hours. They meticulously analyzed her computer and tablet for any further clues, any deleted interactions, or any signs of communication that might have suggested she was responding to an external influence rather than an internal compulsion. They found no evidence of direct communication with any individual that could be construed as an abductor. The only interaction beyond her parents' sphere was her isolated question on the Nature Forum, posted anonymously. This suggested Lily was operating within her own perceived reality, a world where the animals of the night were indeed her guides. It's still difficult to accept that a child could simply wander off and disappear into such a vast wilderness without a trace of the circumstances of her vanishing, stated Corbin, frustration evident in his voice. But the evidence, as it stands, strongly suggests a self-initiated departure. Sheriff Brody, while acknowledging the mounting evidence supporting Lily's independent excursion, remained cautious. "We cannot discount any possibility, however remote," he stressed. "The absence of a perpetrator doesn't mean there wasn't one, especially in such a challenging environment. However, our current focus must be on covering every inch of that forest, based on this new understanding of her potential motivation." The search and rescue efforts, now spanning several weeks, continued the painstaking process of covering the vast expanse of the Oregon wilderness. The terrain was relentless. Steep inclines, dense undergrowth, and the ever-present danger of the elements made progress slow and arduous. Cadaver dogs were brought in, their specialized training focused on locating human remains, a grim necessity as the hope of finding Lily alive faded with each passing day. The media, while still covering the story, began to shift its focus towards the emotional toll on the Henderson family and the broader questions about child safety and the influence of media on young minds. The narrative had evolved from a crime procedural to a deeply tragic exploration of innocence lost. During one of the more intensive searches, near a small, fast-flowing creek deep within the search perimeter, a K-9 unit alerted its handler to a specific area. Following the dog's persistent indication beneath a thick canopy of ferns, officers uncovered a small, partially decayed backpack. Mary Henderson identified it as Lily's, a gift from her grandmother. The backpack's contents were waterlogged and decomposed, but some items were still discernible. A child's crayon drawing, remarkably preserved by the waterproof material, and a small, smooth, dark stone. The drawing depicted Lily holding hands with the shadowy figure, but this time the figure was subtly different, appearing more like a stooped, gnarled tree. The stone, when examined, had a faint, almost imperceptible sheen. "The backpack is a significant find," Corbin announced, holding up the drawing. "It suggests she traveled further than we initially thought, perhaps intending to stay out longer. And this drawing, the shadowy figure, is now a tree. What did she see? What was she drawn to?" The investigators theorized that Lily might have seen a distinctive tree, perhaps one with unusual roots or bark, and imbued it with life, transforming her perceived, shadowy figure into a natural element of the forest. The dark stone was also a mystery, its significance unclear. The discovery of the backpack, while a somber find, offered a glimmer of closure for the family, providing more evidence of Lily's last known movements. However, it also deepened the puzzle of what ultimately happened to the young girl in the unforgiving wilderness. The forest, it seemed, was slowly revealing its secrets, But the ultimate fate of Lily Henderson remained concealed within its silent, enduring depths. The discovery of Lily Henderson's backpack, containing a partially preserved drawing and a mysterious dark stone, provided further heartbreaking confirmation of her extended journey into the Oregon wilderness. The drawing, now depicting a gnarled tree as the shadowy figure, suggested Lily's evolving fantasy intertwined with the natural world around her. The Polk County Sheriff's Office, while facing the grim reality of the situation, continued its meticulous efforts to uncover the final moments of Lily's tragic adventure. Detective Miles Corbin and Detective Lena Hansen intensified their examination of the area surrounding Black Creek, where the backpack was found. The presence of the creek itself offered a potential factor in Lily's journey, a natural landmark, perhaps one she followed or one that ultimately led her astray. They brought in aquatic search specialists to explore the creek's path. The stream, swollen by recent rains, flowed through a particularly dense and remote section of the forest. Investigators speculated that Lily might have followed the creek, either intentionally or by accident, as it wound its way deeper into the wilderness. The terrain along the creek banks was challenging, with slippery rocks and dense overgrowth. During their painstaking search along the creek, a member of the specialized aquatic team noticed something unusual partially submerged in the water, caught among a tangle of roots. It was a small, child-sized boot, identical to the ones Lily was wearing in family photographs. The boot was heavily waterlogged and showed signs of significant wear, consistent with being dragged through water and undergrowth. Its discovery was a devastating blow, confirming that Lily had likely been in or near the creek. The location of the boot, several miles downstream from where the backpack was found, suggested a trajectory, a path through the wilderness that was becoming tragically clear. The boot confirms she was further downstream, Detective Hansen stated, her voice strained. The current could have carried her, or she could have been traveling along the bank. The forest is slowly, tragically, giving us pieces of the story. The discovery prompted a concentrated search of the creek bed and its immediate surroundings for several miles downstream. Cadaver dogs were brought in again, their focus now directed along the creek's course. The hope of finding Lily alive had all but dissipated, replaced by the desperate need to provide her family with answers and a sense of closure. The investigation team also continued to analyze the dark stone found in the backpack. They sent it to a geological lab for analysis, hoping its composition might offer a clue, perhaps linking it to a specific area or a unique geological feature Lily might have sought out. Preliminary analysis indicated it was a type of obsidian, common in some volcanic regions of Oregon, but it possessed an unusual crystalline structure. Theories about Lily's final moments remained focused on her imaginative narrative. Had she been following the creek, believing it led to the home of her night watchers? Had she encountered a specific tree, perhaps one near the creek, that she perceived as her friend, and then been overcome by her surroundings? The exact cause of her final demise remained a mystery, lost to the elements and the silent passage of time. Sheriff Brody issued a statement to the press, acknowledging the grim nature of the latest discoveries. Our search efforts are continuing with the utmost dedication. The recent finds, while deeply tragic, are providing us with a clearer understanding of Lily's movements. We remain committed to locating her and bringing some measure of peace to the Henderson family. The forest, once a place of imagined wonder for Lily, had become the silent, unforgiving keeper of her final days. Each discovery, while heartbreaking, chipped away at the mystery, slowly piecing together the tragic narrative of a child lost to her own innocent, yet ultimately fatal, perception of the world around her. The creek, a silent witness, continued its flow, carrying the echoes of a journey into the unknown. The search for Lily Henderson had entered its most somber phase. The discovery of her boot in Black Creek, miles downstream from where her backpack was found, painted a grim picture of her final journey through the dense Oregon wilderness. The Polk County Sheriff's Office, working closely with search and rescue teams, continued their relentless, albeit heartbreaking, efforts to locate Lily. The ongoing search along the creek banks and in the water itself yielded further agonizing clues. Officers discovered a small, torn piece of fabric, a delicate pink ribbon that Mary Henderson confirmed was from a dress Lily often wore. This find, located about a mile downstream from the boot, reinforced the horrifying trajectory of Lily's presumed movements. Detective Miles Corbin and Detective Lena Hanson, though emotionally drained, continued to meticulously piece together the events that led to Lily's disappearance. The fragmented evidence, the hair clip, the bracelet, the backpack with its drawings, the boot, and now the ribbon, all told a story of a child who had ventured deep into the wilderness, seemingly following some internal compass or perceived guidance. The analysis of the obsidian stone from Lily's backpack by the geological lab offered some insight, but no definitive answers. It confirmed the stone was of volcanic origin, native to certain regions of the Pacific Northwest, including parts of Oregon. However, it didn't pinpoint a specific location that uniquely matched the immediate surroundings of the search area, leaving that aspect of Lily's motivation still shrouded in mystery. The stone itself doesn't give us a specific location, Detective Hanson reported. It's consistent with the geology of this region, but that's a vast area. It still doesn't explain why she would be drawn to a particular stone, or what she believed it represented in her journey. The investigators revisited the premise of the Night Watchers and the shadowy tree. They began to consider if Lily might have encountered a specific, ancient tree in the woods, one that stood out due to its size, shape, or unusual features, and imbued it with the persona of her guide. Their search efforts were now also focused on identifying any such prominent trees along the creek's path. The media coverage had transitioned into a continuous, somber report on the ongoing search and the heartbreaking discoveries. The public's attention remained fixed on Pine Grove, their hopes for Lily's safe return replaced by a shared sense of profound sorrow and the desperate need for closure for the Henderson family. National news outlets continued to broadcast live from the edge of the forest, their reports a testament to the enduring impact of Lily's story. Sheriff Brody, his voice heavy with compassion, addressed the public. Our search teams are continuing their vital work, driven by the hope of bringing Lily home to her grieving family. We have found several items belonging to Lily, which, while devastating, are helping us understand the tragic path she took. We continue to ask for the public's patience and support. As the days turned into weeks, the search expanded to cover the most remote and inaccessible areas along Black Creek. The natural elements had taken their toll, and the chances of finding definitive evidence of Lily's final moments grew slimmer. The investigators had meticulously documented Lily's presumed journey, creating a heartbreaking narrative of a child lost to her own vivid imagination in a vast, unforgiving wilderness. The investigation, while diligently pursuing any remaining leads, was grappling with the profound, unanswered question: what exactly was the final chapter of Lily's adventure? Had she succumbed to the elements alone, her fantastical journey concluding in a tragic accident? Or had there been an unseen factor, a final encounter that remained forever lost to the silent, indifferent canopy of the Oregon woods, leaving the true extent of what happened to Lily Henderson trapped within the unforgiving embrace of nature? The forest held its secrets close, offering only fragments of a story that would forever haunt Pine Grove. The search for Lily Henderson, after weeks of relentless effort, had reached its most difficult and emotionally taxing phase. The fragments of evidence, the hair clip, the bracelet, the backpack with its cryptic drawings, the boot, and the ribbon, had painstakingly constructed a tragic narrative of a child who had ventured deep into the Oregon wilderness, guided by her own unique imaginative world. The Polk County Sheriff's Office, in collaboration with search and rescue teams, continued to scour the dense forest, the grim reality of Lily's fate weighing heavily on everyone involved. Investigators focused their attention on the area surrounding Black Creek, where the boot and ribbon were found. The creek's path was now the primary focus, its current and surrounding banks meticulously searched for any further indications of Lily's movements. The natural erosion and the passage of time meant that definitive traces were becoming increasingly scarce, yet the resolve of the search teams remained unwavering. During a particularly thorough sweep of a less accessible section of the creek, a searcher discovered a small, handcrafted wooden bird, its wings carved with intricate detail. Mary Henderson identified it as a cherished toy Lily had received from her grandfather, a man who had passed away several years prior. The bird was found nestled near a large, ancient-looking fir tree, its gnarled roots sprawling outwards, creating natural alcoves in the earth. The discovery of the wooden bird, found in such close proximity to the ancient tree, resonated deeply with the investigators. It connected back to Lily's evolving drawings, where the shadowy figure had transformed from an abstract form to a tree-like entity. The team speculated that Lily might have encountered this particular tree, perhaps seeing it as the ultimate representation of her imagined guide, her home in the wilderness. "This tree, it matches the description Lily drew," Detective Corbin stated, his voice thick with emotion as he looked at the ancient fir. "The roots, the texture of the bark, it's possible this was the destination, the place she believed she was being led to." The area around the ancient tree was meticulously searched. While no further direct evidence of Lily was found, the presence of the wooden bird there seemed to offer a sense of poignant, albeit tragic, finality. It suggested Lily had reached a point in her journey, a place she perceived as significant, before her ultimate fate. The investigation concluded that Lily, driven by her vivid imagination, her fascination with the nocturnal world, and perhaps a deep spiritual connection to nature, had embarked on a journey into the wilderness. The night watchers and the shadowy figure, whether an abstract concept, an imagined creature, or a personified natural element like the ancient tree, had served as her perceived guides. The exact circumstances of her passing, whether by exposure, accident, or some other tragic means, remained a heartbreaking mystery, lost to the vastness of the forest and the passage of time. Sheriff Brody, in a final, somber press conference, addressed the community and the nation. "While we have not located Lily Henderson, the evidence gathered has provided us with a profound understanding of her journey into the woods. We believe Lily embarked on this adventure driven by an extraordinary imagination and a deep connection to nature. Our thoughts and prayers remain with the Henderson family as they navigate this unimaginable loss." The Henderson family, heartbroken yet finding a somber solace in the narrative pieced together by the investigators, began the difficult process of healing. The story of Lily Henderson became a poignant reminder of the power of childhood imagination, the allure of the natural world, and the profound mysteries that can unfold when the lines between fantasy and reality blur in the most innocent of hearts. The Oregon wilderness, which had held Lily's final moments, continued its silent vigil, forever holding the secrets of the little girl who chased the night watchers home. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never